welcome to episode 247 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast, our August catch-up edition. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We're amateur astronomers that love looking up at the night sky, and this podcast is for anyone else who likes going out under the stars. And Shane, first off, we have a few Patreon supporters to thank. Actually, there's four, and our apologies if I've repeated anybody here, but as you and I were discussing, it can be a little bit more challenging to keep track of who we've thanked and what we've recorded in different episodes when we're doing a whole pile of shorts every few weeks in the summer. It's sort of knocked us out of our usual flow. Yeah.
The routine is a little different. And when we were doing this weekly, you can sort of queue up all of this stuff a little easier. But anyway, big thanks to Sean, Matthew, Wade, and Joe for their Patreon support. They are our newest Patreon supporters. And as always, we thank all Patreon supporters. Really helps us with the show.
Yeah.
And, we also enjoy the correspondence, just the exchanges over email. Joe and I have been having a number of conversations about carbon fiber tripods and suitcase observatories. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we might revisit some of that because I've been following your conversation along. I don't have too much to add to it, but it definitely is interesting. I know you've kind of changed your scope out a little bit, and actually, both your scopes out this summer, and have been selling gear and just kind of based on what you guys are sort of taking this to a whole new level. I think is probably the best way to put it. So maybe we'll dive back into that in a few episodes.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, cool. And I have to give a special thanks out to Felipe, who sent me some famous Brazilian coffee. And so he works in the coffee industry down in Brazil, and he sent me this organic, naturally grown, high altitude coffee, as near as I can determine. And I put this as a qualifier because I believe everything on the packaging is in Portuguese, and this coffee is just, Shane, it's just out of this world. It is just on a whole different level.
Well, last night I always read the show notes in advance just to prep in case I have to, do some reading or anything, which rarely is the case, but I want to be ready. And when I was reading your description of this coffee, I had this unrational desire to go, buy the most incredible coffee in the world. And anyway, your description is wild. So
it really is quite wild. So like I was saying, and I started kind of going down this rabbit hole and then said, no, we should just record it. But, I've tried some of the, some of those best coffees in the world, that are, I'm not like a coffee aficionado or anything, but like the Kona coffee, which I know you've had, which is, and that is extremely good coffee, like, really different stuff, very next level too, eh?
Yeah, it's just full of flavor and exceptionally smooth.
Yeah, and then I've tried like the Jamaican Blue. I don't know if you've ever had that before.
No, I have not.
Which is a pretty famous coffee as well, and quite good, very expensive. I think it's more expensive than the Kona. It's very similar to the Kona though, at least to my palate. And so when Felipe was going to send me this coffee, this is sort of what I had in mind, and the coffee that I got couldn't have been more different, but still on that same next level. And so I have my own, like he had asked if I had my own grinder, which of course I do. I don't have like a fancy grinder or anything like that, but I do grind my own coffee most days, and so I opened it up and I smelled it and I was like, and it smells amazing, but it does not smell like any coffee that you've ever smelled before.
Oh yeah.
It is I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like this indescribable coffee. And so I ground it and then I emptied it into a canister, just like a glass canister first. And I looked at it, I'm like, I have to regrind this. I didn't do it justice. So actually, and I've almost never done this, I had to put it back in my grinder and regrind the coffee because it just didn't even grind the same way as beans that I usually get. I try all kinds of different coffees and I almost never have to do this. So I had to regrind it. And it's really hard to describe the smell. And it did have this beautiful, it's really hard to describe. It almost smells and tastes like a field of flowers that popped up after a spring rain. And that just sounds ridiculous, but that is kind of how it tasted to me. Like it had these beautiful floral aromas. And my wife, who does not drink coffee, I've actually never seen her drink coffee. She came over and drank some. So
It's amazing.
That's kind of where it's at. So I really appreciate that. Like I would say, compared to like regular, it sort of had this tone of regular coffee, but no bitterness. Like just exceptionally smooth, and yeah, it was super, super cool. So I had actually intended to wait until maybe Mike came out to try it, but then he's been busy this weekend and such. So I was like, you know what? I can't wait. I can't, because I don't think coffee should really sit around, at least in my opinion. It's meant to be harvested and processed, and then, should be ground and drunk in relatively short order. You shouldn't just leave it lying around somewhere. I'm sure it's fine, but I always feel like to do it proper justice, it should just be consumed. And wow. And then I felt bad because I was telling you, like, I felt like, oh, we should have really had this together. But yeah, maybe we can connect and have a cup shortly. So he sent me quite a bit. So I've got like a kilogram of the stuff. So
oh, wow. Yeah, that's great.
I know and I was saying to my wife, of all the things that I thought that might come out of this podcast, getting just an amazing coffee experience was something that was never even on my radar. So this was just an exceptional treat. But anyway, should talk a little bit about astronomy, I suppose.
Well, and really, coffee is the best friend of an astronomer. So there is a connection there.
It is. And I was up last night doing some astronomy. So I really appreciated the coffee this morning. So I wanted to ask you about how your July and early part of August was first before I ramble on too much.
Sure. So, well, early July, I really didn't do any nighttime observing, just because we're so close to the solstice that the daytime hours are too long and it just doesn't really get that dark. So I did some solar observing earlier in the month, and the sun is just so active right now. I can't stress enough how much there is to see there. And the one thing that I'll note, like if you're doing white light solar observing, there's a lot of chatter online about the Bader Continuum filter, I think it is.
Yep.
Yeah. It's supposed to be really good. I don't have it, but it's supposed to be really good for white light observing, just to help bring out some of the more subtle detail that you can observe.
Yeah, I've looked through it.
Okay. How was it?
It does. Yeah, it's really good. This is the problem though, is that I've looked through it and I thought it was cool. I'm not really that much of a solar observer, as you know, Shane. So, but yeah, a friend of mine has it. I think Randall has it, and somebody else has it as well. And I think we watched the transit of Venus through it. So,
neat.
Yeah. So I have some experience with it. I thought it was really awesome, but at the same time, I don't really have that much of a rich background in solar observing to really detail out why it seems so good. Very sharp, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Fair points. But what I was reading online recently is people are using O3 filters while observing white light solar.
Oh yeah,
that makes sense. I started to do that, and I was pretty pleased. I think it does help with a little bit of the surface detail, and create maybe a little more contrast with the sunspots. So. Mm-hmm. If you're a white light solar observer, and if you have an Oxygen 3 or O3 filter in your kit, give it a try and just see how you like it. And if you do that, send us an email too. I'd be curious about what you think. I used it in limited amount of sessions, so I want to keep using it throughout the summer here just to see how I like it over a number of different sessions. But first report, it seems pretty solid. So anyway, a lot of solar observing.
Yeah,
and then. When you went to Grasslands, I, had a change of plans due to some family issues. But I stayed home and I went to the local club's dark site out by, it's a little town called Davin. And I had one of the better nights I've ever had out there. In fact, just a great night in general. I got one of my bucket list observations done, which was splitting Antares. So that was a lot of fun with the TSA 102. But like the night was just, there was so many Messier and deep sky objects that you could see naked eye. I was really quite surprised. In the rift of the Milky Way, gosh, it had to extend 25 degrees or so wide. It was pretty good, and just a great night. I spent a lot of time in Sagittarius, again working through O'Meara's hidden treasures. I looked at NGC 6624. I think that was a globular. 6520 was an open cluster, a really neat open cluster. It's sort of like a mini Kemble's Cascade. There's like 5 quite bright stars in a straight line, and then kind of some nebulosity and some other stars that form that open cluster. What else? Another globular in there, 6544. What I find really interesting about these NGC objects that O'Meara calls out is when you're in Sagittarius, you're often lured into like the Lagoon, the Trifid, M22, M17, like kind of the showpiece Messier objects. And it's easy to miss some of these NGCs, but if you do look for them, it's actually quite astonishing to me how bright they are and how large they are and how I've missed them somehow all these years. So anyway, it was really fun and took in a whole bunch of other, Messier objects that I've seen 1,000 times, and had some really good looks at Saturn that night, which is starting to become a pretty good object earlier on. And
Nice.
Just in general, it was a beautiful evening. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. How about you? How's your July been?
Yeah. Well, we still seem to be getting, and even up to a couple nights ago, we still seem to be getting these clear nights, but that they're often either preceded or at some point the clouds pass through and it rains. Like even 2 nights ago, it was supposed to be clear, and I thought, I don't like the look of that cloud in the distance. And it was like, again, like a 10, like we'll say like 0 or 10 or 20% chance of rain, sometimes you get that just if there's clouds around. And I didn't set up, and it rained, and then the sun went down, and of course everything's now soaked, and it's just going to be wet all night, right? And I suppose I probably could have done binocular astronomy that night, but like you were saying, kind of work commitments and other things, I was just way too tired, and the conditions were just far too marginal to motivate me to go out. But in July, it was the same thing. It just kept doing this. So I think I'm on my 7th night since the start of June or something like that, maybe 8th, which doesn't seem like much to me, because like I'll be out if it's good and clear. But these nights where these clouds and rain showers at night are coming through. And before I go into my observations, like even in grasslands, we observed a bit on the Friday night and tore down, went back to the tent, and then just like pitter patter rain like all night. Like I don't think we had a millimeter of rain, but it was just like little bits of rain shower all night, even in the grasslands, which is just like the most dry place in this part of Canada anyway. So that's kind of been a bit disappointing. And it's kind of impacted the observing for sure. And it's just like the chance, right? Like here today, it's the same thing. It's like incredibly clear. And we've had days where like I took a week off and every day was the same. It was totally clear, like blue sky, horizon to horizon every day. And then just by random chance at night, the clouds would pass through. There'd be a rain shower, and then they'd move out just in time for sunrise, kind of thing. And like if you talk to anybody, people were saying, "Oh, you must be getting lots of astronomy," because they weren't realizing like they were going to bed just as like it was getting dark and it was clouding up. And then, no, I haven't observed in weeks. And what are you talking about? It's been clear like every day. Yeah. If I was a solar observer, it'd be great.
Yeah. I did fit in some early evening observing too, just in the backyard, chasing down some double stars and some big open clusters and things like that. But certainly no, meaningful dark sky observing other than that one night out at Davin. Yeah.
I did get a couple good nights out here, just where, because when you're sort of living out here at a dark site, you can really pick and choose. So there's been a couple nights where, it cleared off at 1:30, and then, a couple nights I was set up and just went out and observed. I did the same thing last night where I set my scope up at at dusk and went to bed for a few hours, and then woke up and observed for 2 or 3 hours during the night. And last night was okay, but then it got really good about 2 o'clock, and I was pretty bagged, but I was able to make some fun observations. Like, I'm not even really working on anything because this is like such marginal observing. I had a nice long view at M33, which is the large Triangulum galaxy. Had a nice view of M31 and M32 and M110, which are the companion galaxies to the Andromeda galaxy, and took a look at that. Oh, what's it called? The big open cluster there in Triangulum that Carolyn Herschel found. I think it's like, I forget what it is. I looked it up even before this. I'm just really tired because I was up all night. And there was some huge aurora. When I first got up, I walked up the hill, and there was like one of those like huge streaks just sitting there in the sky. I think people are calling these like a Steve or something, though I don't think this one was a Steve. I think it was just like a pillar on a funny angle. And then the aurora kind of kicked up a bit. And so I actually went and drove up the hill and you can get a better view of the north on top of the hill. And the whole the northern sky was just alive with aurora. And then there was these huge broken bands that were cutting straight up overhead. And I drove down, and you could even just like stand on the front deck here and look up, and you could see these. It's really hard to describe. They were like almost like, they were just like, there'd be like a line of aurora, and then a break, no aurora, and then another line, and then a break and a line. And this just covered like the whole sky almost through the zenith. It wasn't quite at the zenith, but it was like at about 70 degrees up. So you could like stand on the front deck and see it, even though you're only standing 4 or 5 feet in front of the house. So it was almost right overhead. So that was pretty cool to see last night.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Down in the grasslands though, last weekend, man, that place is so dark. Like, it is, man, for people that have never been to a Bortle 1 site before, I'm really surprised that there's so few amateur astronomers in Saskatchewan and nearby places, that there's just not that many that visit it. Like, it is so dark though. Like, putting my 4-inch refractor, I took my 4-inch tack down with me. I was looking at like the wild duck cluster, and through my 30 power or my 30 millimeter eyepiece, which I think gives me like 25 power or something like that, that cluster is so bright. Like, it was almost like a globular cluster. And there were so many stars, like, just packed so tightly together. Like, you had to use power to kind of even begin to kind of disperse it. Like, it was just such a tightly condensed, very detailed cluster, and just like everything is like that out there. But I did these just naked eye sky tours,
Okay.
And it was so dark that night. I had a laser pointer, but when I started trying to use it, because the parks want me to do like so many tours a night, but when I was sort of scheduled to kind of do one, like the first one, you could see like probably fourth and a half magnitude stars, but you couldn't use the laser pointing up because the sky itself was still too bright. So I was like trying to get my head around the fact, like, how can I see almost 5th magnitude stars, but it's still too bright to see the laser pointer? Like, it's just so dark overhead, like it is so crazy dark there. And once it did get fully dark, and the public stayed out until just about 1 o'clock, we had about 100 people out, and you could see things like seeing like Messier 8 and sort of the Trifid and M20 region. Like, that was just bright. Like, that was very, very bright spot in the Milky Way. You'd never miss it, and then things like the Dark Horse Nebulae Complex, which is, it looks like a dark horse sitting on its hindquarters up in the bottom of Ophiuchus.
Yep.
Like, I pointed that out to the public that was there, and I said, like, usually this is something you just see in photographs, and we could see M22, like the public, like I was like, does anybody see this fuzzy spot here? Yeah, everybody could see it, and you could see M22 unaided eye. Like, I was pretty excited about it. I think I counted about 40 deep sky objects, and there was all these clusters like up in sort of Perseus and Camelopardalis and Cassiopeia, and just like the usual ones, like some of the let's see, like the double cluster was so bright you could see the two lobes, like of the clusters, like naked eye you could see the two distinct lobes, and then you could actually see, I think it's stalk 2 that's just above it, you could see that like so clearly, not just like, oh, you can kind of see the lobes. They were just totally there. Then like the North American Nebula, which is sometimes like, if you think you've seen it like naked eye, you might debate, oh, like, is that it, or am I really seeing it, or what are we seeing there? And it was so clearly defined, like that edge in around like the sort of the Gulf of Mexico was just like, it was just like somebody took like a black crayon and drew through this dark cloud, like, and it just looked like a dark stream there, like to the naked eye. And I mean, I need new glasses, and probably don't have the best prescription right now. And I just like seeing that level of detail on the structure going down through Aquila and Scutum and Sagittarius, like the detail, like the Milky Way wasn't just a band, it was just like so much detail. You could see like that detail in M24 as well, where it has almost like this greater than symbol in it. Yeah, you could see all that. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, really, really great. And I hardly looked through the telescopes. I just mostly looked at the sky naked eye. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Well, the number one accessory for an astronomer is not eyepieces or filters or big telescopes. It's a dark sky. And, the darker the sky, the more it sort of compensates for all that other stuff, like a 4-inch, like your refractor under a dark sky like that, probably performs like almost like a 6-inch or 8-inch on, a sky half as good sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of, but like the nothing can compare to that contrast. Just having that contrast just jacked up like that is just amazing. Yeah, just incredible. If people haven't gotten to a Bortle 1 site before, they should try to get to one. If you live in Canada, you should try to get down to the grasslands, because that is definitely the best sky I've ever seen. Really, it is. I've been down further south, and like on top of Haleakala in Hawaii, and getting further south is great. You can see more detail, and certainly if you're on top of a 10,000 foot volcano, like the sky is a little bit better. But boy, it's so close to that down there that it's quite surprising. Yeah, quite surprising. Yeah, and the detail through the telescopes, like when you look at M13 through a 12-inch down there, like Mike has 12-inch set up, it would be like looking at M13 through a 20-inch under a Bortle 3 sky, which is like a good sky, Bortle 3 sky, and like a little bit better than where my dark side is. And I've looked through 20-inch telescopes like that, and but the 12-inch down there, just gives you so much detail. Good session. Really good session down there. So, but I wasn't sleeping as good, so I ended up buying the inner mesh lining for my tent, because I just have a fabric lining interior. So I was getting too hot at night, not sleeping as well. I wanted to do 3 nights, so I only did 2.
Oh, okay.
But, I got the mesh lining coming, so that will hopefully help get me a couple more hours sleep a night when it is warmer down there.
Nice. I finally put my Mark's Work Warehouse, so that's a store in Canada, a clothing store, and I had bought I think they call it like a no-fly zone mosquito repellent shirt. It uses like natural things in the clothing to repel mosquitoes and wood ticks.
Oh yeah.
And the mosquitoes were thick out at Davin, but this shirt did a great job to keep them away. I was really pleased with it.
Oh wow.
I might buy like a hat and pants of the same make, so that I kind of have a full kit to keep the mosquitoes away without having to use any kind of spray or bug repellent.
Oh yeah, hate that stuff. Yeah, I've been just kind of setting up and then waiting them out. Like even like some nights here they've been horrendous, but after an hour and a half after sunset, they're gone.
Yeah, they do
Yeah.
disappear once it cools off. But, sometimes too, with these warm days that we've been having, the evenings are not cooling as quickly as I'd like. So the mosquitoes stay a little more active.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Anything else to add to this episode, Shane?
No, that is it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. We're always happy to receive your Patreon support, and we can be reached for your observing reports or anything else you might wish to ask us at actualastronomy@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.